Hey there, and welcome to the Fiihr Factor, the podcast that shines a light on real stories, smart strategies, and the occasional hard truth about running a business. Think of this as your quick dose of clarity before your first cup of coffee. Let's go. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Desiree Davidson from Bella Terra Animal Hospital. And it's really cool because she's my client, she's my vet, and she's a really cool person. How are you doing? Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm doing well. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. Now, you like to go by Dr. Davidson or Dr. Desiree, or what's your preference?
Yeah, most people, Dr. Davidson's fine. Sometimes people call me Dee Dee, but most people, Dr. Davidson works.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so tell me, how did you get into being, helping animals?
Yeah, I kind of have the typical cliche answer. I just have always enjoyed animals, loved being around them, like working with them. And then I was kind of more science minded. And I grew up, my mom has always worked in the medical field, human side, but I kind of just, I think with the combination of that and being around that, and I think veterinary medicine just fit perfectly with kind of what I know, what I grew up in, and what I'm interested in. So.
That's awesome. Okay, so medicine
Yeah.
animals. So were your parents were like really going to work on animals, or were they cool with it?
No, cool with it. Yeah, I think I told them when I was like 3 years old that I was going to be a veterinarian and never
Really?
wavered from it. So yeah, I guess I decided when I was young that was what I always wanted to do and never changed that. My dad's not in the medical field, but my mom is. And I don't think anybody was surprised.
That's so cool. But
So.
I mean, I know my daughter was debating about becoming a vet. Like it's harder to become a vet than it is a doctor, correct?
They say that. I think it's because there's significantly less veterinary schools in the United States than there are like medical schools. Because there's medical school for medical, you have like MD, you can be an MD, and then there's also a DO, which are slightly different, but still a medical doctor or a human doctor, I should say.
Yes, a human doctor. Thank you. That's great clarification. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A four-legged doctor versus a human doctor.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Yep.
so then you graduated, and then what happened?
So when I graduated vet school, I actually moved down to Corpus Christi for a little over a year. I was trying to decide kind of what path I wanted to take. So I specialized in, or you say specialized, but I chose kind of the small animal path in vet school. And then when I got out, I wasn't sure if I wanted to become strictly like emergency medicine doctor or general practice. And so there was a hospital down in Corpus Christi where I could do both. It was kind of a 24-hour emergency and general practice. So I got a lot of experience, very steep learning curve coming out of vet school with both kind of general practice and emergency medicine. And
That,
then shortly after that, I moved back home to the Sugar Land, Houston area.
awesome, awesome. And then how did you end up getting into business, your own business?
Yeah, that was not part of my 5-year plan out of vet school. But when I moved home, I kind of joined a general practice in the Sugar Land Stafford area. And I met my business partner, Dr. Pucksta, and we kind of just, we clicked really well and got along. And I think Dr. Pucksta has been thinking about it a little longer than I have and just was kind of like, do you want to start a practice? And I said, sure, why not? And we kind of got started and got into it. And now here we are.
My gosh. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot starting a business. Like and actually like you got to sign leases, you got a lot of financial stuff, you got to build out a clinic. So how did you come to the point where it's like, yep, we're going to do this thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. It kind of all happened really fast. I think that, like I said, my business partner, Dr. Pucksta, she had thought about it a little longer than I had. And I think when I said, yep, let's do it, we kind of started and we had chatted about it a little bit prior to actually committing to it and kind of where we were going to put our practice, where was a good location in terms of obviously other clinics in the area. once you get started, it all happens pretty quick. Especially once you sign, I guess once you sign the lease to either where you're going to build out or, we built out in a shopping center, but yeah, once you decide on that, they don't give you much time to start building. So, we definitely learned on the fly quite a bit. So, but it all worked out.
Okay, cool, cool. So I always tell people that when you're starting a business, it takes twice as much money, it's twice as hard, and it takes twice as long as you thought it would. Does that sound familiar at all?
Yeah, yeah. You don't realize how expensive everything is. And I think even on the veterinary medicine side with equipment and stuff like that, you really don't. You're never really, unless you're buying it, there's not really any reason you would know. But yeah, a lot of that it's very expensive to get started. So yeah, all very eye-opening, I would say. And yes, very time consuming. Kind of that's all it is now and all it was building. And if anything could go wrong, it would go wrong. And
Right?
but it all worked out. And yeah, it's happy to be where we are now, definitely. But yes, it's very, very time consuming. I don't think that you're prepared for, you think you might be, but
Yes.
yeah, a lot of stuff comes up for sure.
Yeah, and I think the fact of the matter is you went to school to become a doctor of animals. You didn't go to school to become an MBA, right? And so you don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
all
I
this stuff.
I did not get my business degree. I wish I would have now. I wish, and they don't teach you a ton in vet school about it. They gloss over it, and there's some, organizations that you can join, but I still don't think you get the gravity of any of it until you really get into the middle of it.
That's so true.
But
So how do you maintain a great relationship with your partner as you're kind of grinding through this stuff? Do you have regular meetings? Do you have like a you know big barbell? I don't really.
yeah. And maybe we should. No, we were friends obviously before, and so we were in constant contact with each other, text a lot. We have kind of regular check-ins, whether that be, at the clinic or, after work one day if we need to kind of check in with each other, meetings. Sometimes obviously we meet with you, twice a month, which is really helpful, and kind of just having that time set aside to really kind of look at things and talk about things out loud and present those things and take that time to dive into certain areas that can definitely get lost on a day-to-day basis when you're not only trying to run a business, but we're also the doctors of the practice and fulfilling that role as a veterinarian, but also the role as practice owner can sometimes be difficult. So yeah, our regular meetings are definitely extremely helpful.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. I enjoy them, and it's fun to be able to come in from the outside and just different. One of the things about coaching is just having a perspective because y'all are
Right.
playing, you're on the field playing the game. I'm up in the press box and can see plays developing, and that I think there's a value add there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, sometimes when you're in the middle of it and kind of feel like you have everything right there in front of you, it's hard to sometimes step out of it and take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So I definitely think it's helpful to have somebody who can come in and look at all of the pieces and not kind of be in the middle of it, because you can sometimes get a clearer view, if you will, or just like again an outside perspective of like, well, I'm not in the middle of this, but this looks like, X, Y, and Z, and a different perspective is always helpful, because we get stuck in our ways as people, and we always think we're right, but that's not always the case. And so having, an outside perspective of someone who has expertise, in business where we don't, so it's nice to definitely have someone who's more qualified in the area of business.
Very kind of you to say. Thank you. So tell me, if you were going to do one thing different, if you're starting this clinic up again and you're going to do one thing different, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think my thing is research. I think I like to be a little bit more prepared, in terms of just all aspects of it, knowing, having a little bit more knowledge on business, or maybe even taking business classes would have been maybe something. Learning more of the lingo, making myself more knowledgeable. I think people call it business acumen. I would like to have more of that. I think if I were to start over, that would be one of the things I think I would focus on before kind of just jumping into it head first.
Makes sense. So I want you to look, I love bringing my animals to y'all because you're so caring and kind. And I mean, I don't know if this is a stat. I'm pretty sure that dogs like women more than men. Most dogs do. Is that true?
I mean, I'm gonna say it is. Yeah, I don't. I haven't actually. I think there is some, research maybe on that. Anecdotally, I would say yes, that's true. We typically see a lot of dogs who are fearful of men, versus women. But I'll be honest, I don't know a true stat on that. But anecdotally, I'll say that's true for sure.
I like it. I like it. What about so when I bring my dog in, it's so great because it's a certified calm clinic, but a lot of people probably don't know what that is. Can you explain that?
Yeah, yeah. So a certified calm clinic is, we have these products that some of them are, you'll see sprays and diffusers around our hospital, and they're kind of emitting or diffusing pheromones. We have, some specific to dogs and some specific to cats. And it helps those pheromones just help calm them down in terms of that. And so sometimes with, anxious pets that don't typically like going to the vet, they come in and it's just a calmer environment. We also have noise machines in each room with calming sounds that can be helpful to pets, and so that they're not hearing a bunch of different noises. It can help kind of drown out some of the sound that might be happening around them. And so a lot of aspects we try to be fear free, where we don't manhandle pets there at all. We try to be kind of as hands free as we can. We let the animals kind of tell us what they're comfortable with, and do our best to work around that. And then there's medications and such that we can use if the dogs tend to be a little bit more anxious. But yeah, our hospital is set up with kind of noise things and pheromones that really help calm some of those dogs down. And we get a lot of feedback on a lot of positive experiences of animals that may not have had those in the past.
Yeah, it's so different coming into your place versus somewhere else. What tell me about a time, tell me one of your most rewarding things you've done thus far in your practice,
Ooh, most rewarding.
or just
Yeah,
something
think
that you
about
really
that for a
love.
second.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, I like the personal feel that we add, with us being a privately owned smaller practice. We're more personable. Our front desk staff knows people, by name, and we know each people's pets. And so it's kind of building those relationships of the people around us in the same neighborhood that we're in, and being a part of the community. We do like a trunk or treat event, and so it's really cool to see people out in the neighborhoods and stuff that we also see, in our clinic, and kind of having more of a close knit group or community. And so really building those connections with the people around us, definitely is one of my favorite parts of kind of our smaller practice that we have.
I like it. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and our vets, we knew our vets really well, right? They'd visit
Yeah.
us, and we once in a while take an animal, and like a small animal, but basically they were at our farm every other week. It's like they're part of your family. So I love that kind of
Yep.
relationship stuff. And they're our babies. We got to trust our babies to somebody we trust.
100%. Yeah, it definitely helps build that trust, when you're more comfortable around somebody, and you trust that person, recommendations and stuff like that come a lot easier. And yeah, I mean, I definitely understand pets and stuff are family members. And so you can't leave your babies with anybody. So I definitely understand that. And, that's what we want. We want people to kind of trust us with their babies, and know that we would treat them with the same, kind of care and respect and things like that we would our own pets.
That's awesome. If you had to give one piece of advice to animal owners or pet owners, is there something where people generally fail or overlook?
Yeah, I think, a lot of people, I mean, preventatives obviously are really important. Heartworm and flea prevention here in Texas, we don't get seasons essentially. It's really just hot. majority of the time, and we might get a few days or a few weeks of cooler weather. I wouldn't necessarily say cold, but unless it's, a crazy event, but it's usually not cold enough to kill off the fleas and the ticks and the, mosquitoes. And so those threats are, even though we can't see them most of the time, a lot of people are worried about fleas, but heartworms are a little bit more concerning to us with the mosquitoes, and they're here year round. I joke that they're kind of our unofficial state bird because they get so big here, but they really do. They can create, heartworms. They're worms that actually live in the heart and lungs. I think people get confused and think that they're like an intestinal parasite,
Hmm.
but they're actual worms that live in the heart and the lungs and create a lot of damage, while they're there. And so it's really easy, to prevent those. And treatment is really expensive, one, and two is really hard on the pet. They've got to be
Hmm.
quiet for 3 to 4 weeks, or 3 to 4 months, excuse me, like no activity, because, we don't want anything to happen while we're trying to get rid of those worms. And so, and the injections aren't nice either. They go into the back, and so pretty
Oh.
uncomfortable. Yeah, so we would rather not have to treat for heartworms, and relatively easily preventable in terms of that. I would say that probably. And then, we like to feed our pets treats. And human food is just not always great. There's a lot of actually toxic, food that people, aren't aware of, which we try to, I say we try to love our pets and kind of kill them with kindness, but it's better that we just stay away from some of that.
Yeah, I bet I'm guessing like Thanksgiving, Christmas, then you got the relatives over, they're feeding your pets. I mean, that could be a rough time for
Yeah.
dogs, cats, and et
Yeah,
cetera.
we see a little bit of an influx of some upset stomachs and some not so great diarrhea post usually Thanksgiving, unfortunately, just because yeah, they get into all the things that we cook for us, and we flavor it for us, and that's usually too much for our pets. And so there's things that they can eat, but it needs to be plain, and nobody cooks no one cooks a turkey just for their dog, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's usually lathered in a bunch of seasonings and butters and everything else, and then yeah, the dogs just don't accept that as well as we do.
Yes, it's funny. You just think, oh well, this a little bit can't hurt them, and then a little bit is a little bit more, and then all of a sudden you're cleaning up you're cleaning up crap off your floor, which isn't great
Yeah,
either.
it's yeah, it's a little bit from everybody is the thing. So if it was a little bit from one person, not a huge deal. A little bit from everybody that's there with you adds up to a whole plate full of food. And yeah, it can the dogs enjoy it at the time, but they don't enjoy it afterwards.
The
And neither will you.
overindulgence, same for dogs and
Yeah,
people, right?
exactly.
What do you wanna so what's your kinda your vision for your, your clinic and, like, where do you wanna take it along? I call it a clinic, your hospital. What's the vision for that for the future?
It's okay. I also do that all the time too. I think it's just I interchange them even though we probably shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, we obviously want to be really successful. We want to be that neighborhood vet that people, can trust and, feel comfortable with, taking their animals to, and also accepting of kind of what we recommend and things like that, and that comes with building that trust and
Mm.
realizing that we're there to kind of help you and your pets, and keep them healthy. We don't want to see them sick. We want to do the yearly preventatives and maintenance to keep them healthy, but build and have a successful practice that's part of the community, and like I said, that people can come to and trust and believe in, while, we're and give back to the community that we're in as well, obviously. But, being successful is helpful in all of that. So
Yeah, you gotta make money to be able to give back. That's kind of the way it works.
yeah, and hopefully maybe one day we can, get out of the storefront, and or in the shopping center, and maybe kind of have a standalone. But hey, we'll see what comes with time, and as long as I think our main goal is to provide high quality medicine, and uh, provide for the people around us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Until you mentioned it, I hadn't really thought about you are a real a necessary part of the community, and as your practice grows, you can meet and touch and impact more people and more patients, and that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that's our goal. We want to be there for everyone. And like I said, we want people to trust us, and we want to be there for those pets and people, and especially in the time of need.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so selfish question. You mentioned some things about coaching. Anything else that you really like?
Yeah.
Dang, this has been really helpful. Can you name one thing or anything come to mind?
I mean, I think obviously the research that you help us do in terms of, just research in terms of like brainstorming ideas, and then also like, hey, we've talked about this idea, here's what I found. I think that's extremely helpful, especially when, as a business owner, you have a million things that you have to do. And so, having someone that can take some of that off your plate I mean, it's extremely valuable. It's like, wow, it makes it feel less heavy. You're like, okay, great. I
Mm,
have another list of things I have to do. So to have somebody, like you that just says, "Hey, here it is," and you're like, "Oh, thank God." Like that's such a relief to have one less thing, on your plate. I think that's been really nice. And then yeah, the brainstorming, I think, sometimes like I said, we're in the thick of it, and it's hard to take a step back and be like, you feel like you're doing everything you can, and then you just have someone who comes in with kind of a clear head, and has different ideas. Well, have you tried X, Y, and Z? And so I think that's also been extremely helpful to have, someone who, okay, you're doing the right things, but maybe here's a couple extra things that can help or accelerate. And I think that's been really helpful as well.
awesome, thank you. Okay, important question. Are the Aggies going to win the national championship this year?
Oh, you know what? I'm always hoping for my Aggies. There is, the battered Aggie syndrome, so you can't get too excited. Can't get too excited, but hey, I don't know. We're 11-0, so and we're
It's a
we're doing
beautiful thing.
pretty well. So, always hopeful for the Aggies.
Well, and then
Seems
you
to be
have
our
that.
best chance yet. So,
I love it. And you have that other school that you're playing against this week with the
yep,
horns that are
yep.
going down, you know? I
Yeah,
know you
horns
can't.
down all the way. Horns
Horns
down.
down.
Horns
Yep.
down. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and I'm sure you won't lose any clients by saying that. We're all friendly here, you know.
hey, I mean, the chances of you having an Aggie vet in Texas are extremely high. So, unless you can't have a Longhorn vet unless they went there for undergrad. So,
Uh-huh.
they've got to go somewhere else for vet school. There's no Longhorn, there's no T vet school. So, um,
Pretty good shape then.
and like I said, in Texas, the chances are pretty high that you're gonna have an Aggie veterinarian. So, gig them all the way.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, this is speed round, three quick questions, then we'll call it, okay?
Okay.
Question number 1, if you're an animal, what animal would you be?
Elephant.
Elephant. Really?
Yeah.
He says
Yeah.
very decisively, why elephant?
I've always loved elephants. I think they're just like majestic animals. I think the fact that they have memory, like their memory is amazing. They're
Mm,
incredibly intelligent, but they're also like still emotional creatures. So I just think, and like their herd is led, it's a matriarch. So I just
mm.
think it's kind of atypical, I guess, for most. You think most are led by the male version, but yeah, elephants are just, they're cool,
They are
you
really
know?
cool. I love
Yeah.
going to the zoo, and you see the babies and they're so small and just watch them grow up. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
incredible. Okay, what do you wanna be when you grow up?
What do I want to be when I grow up? Rich.
It's not a bad answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've like I said, I've always wanted to be a veterinarian. I think if I could sing, I'd like to be a singer, but I cannot sing, so I'll keep that to myself and in my car.
And
I won't
shower.
subject anybody to that.
Shower's
Oh,
okay
and I do
too.
it at I yeah, I do it at work too, so I apologize to everybody that works with me, but the front doesn't hear it, mainly the back, so the
Nice,
clients are
nice.
safe.
Yeah, nice. I love it. Okay, and last question, what do you wanna be remembered for?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think the impact that I leave on people, I always want to be known as somebody who is always like helpful and somebody that's reliable and that you can count on. I think that kind of you know, having those people in your life are always incredibly important. Knowing someone that you can pick up the phone and call at any point, and always have that person to count on, regardless of, how frequently you may talk to them or not. But having someone who's reliable in your life is always someone that's incredibly invaluable. They're just, or valuable, that you just can't replace. So just like kind of the impact and, like I said, just being that person that can be helpful and reliable to people.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Davidson, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I got to put a plug in for Bella Terra Animal Hospital. I drive 30 minutes, which, I pass a whole bunch of vet clinics on the way, and I do not regret it at
Yeah.
all because the care is superior and you all care and my dogs like you. And so it's worth the drive.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I know Houston is an hour away from Houston, and there are a lot of vet clinics that you do pass on your drive. And so, we have clients that come from near and far, and we do appreciate those that drive and come to us, and we're always happy to see you.
It's so worth it. Thank you so much for your time today. This was fabulous.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Cheers. Such a great time with Dr. Davidson. She is a person that really cares about pets and really cares about people. And it shows. That's why their practice is continuing to grow and flourish. Also interesting how she had this vision when she was just a little girl about being a vet, and now she never ever looked back from that. Pretty incredible. And I guess the other thing I would say about independent vets are the ones to go to. This corporate veterinary medicine now is really turning things into a machine, and it really should be the personal touch. This should be our trusted vet, our trusted person that we can take our family members to. And she exudes that, as does her partner, Dr. Puxta. They got an incredible practice. So thankful for them to be in my group, part of my client group. Liked what you heard? Let's make it real. Schedule your free coaching session today at sugarland.actioncoach.com.